All right, well, let's get started. So welcome everybody to our March PRAM Central Chapter meeting. If you're new to PRAM, my name is Matt Westerfield. I'm the chapter president this year. So thank you for joining in today. So this meeting is being recorded, so feel free to turn your camera off. And please note that I've uploaded this meeting's agenda into the chat. So if you'd like to pull that up. We'll introduce our guest speaker in a minute, but first we have a couple of announcements. Before we get started, do we have any guests here today who are not new members? If so.
Attention everyone, we will be conducting a test.
All right, if we don't have any guests, I'll turn it over to Jean Cook, our Vice President of Membership, and she's going to introduce new members.
Thanks, Matt. I'm just looking in the list to see if our new members are here. I don't see their names, but since our last meeting, we've had 2 new student members join from Mississippi College, Jared Couch and Aslan Anthony. So we're very excited we've got a lot of new students who've joined, or a fair number in the last month or so, last 2 months. So welcome to them, and we hope they can join us at a future meeting.
Okay, and then I think we're going to turn it over to Sophie, who has a couple of announcements. Sophie is our VP for programs.
All right, I'll unmute myself. Thank you, Matt. The first thing I want to mention is actually something you'll see coming up soon in our upcoming newsletter. As you know, we have all been converting to different forms throughout the pandemic, and this is actually the 1-year mark that we have had virtual meetings. And we're looking to the future and trying to decide what we'll do going forward in 2021. So you'll see starting April 1st in that newsletter, a link for a survey that we would love for you to take that we've created to see what you thought about this past year and then how you feel going forward. So I just want to encourage you to take that. There'll be several reminders to take that survey. It should take 10 minutes or less. So I just want to encourage you to take that survey when it comes through, because we'd love to hear what you've thought of the past year and then how you're feeling for the next year. And that's really all I have on the programs front. Matt, is there anything before we introduce our speaker?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to mention the APR stuff at the end.
Wonderful. And you'll see her on your screen, hopefully. We have Jessica Simien Lofton with us, and she is an entrepreneur, content creator, and cultural critic with over a decade of experience in the public relations and media industry. The Jackson, Mississippi native is currently freelancing as a communications consultant and serves as the co-owner of Lofton Co, a family-run hair, body, and home goods company here in Jackson. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about engagement and how to keep our audiences engaged in the times that we're in. So Jessica, we'll hand it over to you.
Hello, everyone. As Sophie mentioned, I'm Jessica. Thank you, Sophie, for the introduction. Thank you for having me. I was telling her I'm a little nervous because I feel like an imposter all the time, especially when it comes to work. So I'm going to try to get my nerves out and talk a little bit about, as Sophie said, engagement during the coronavirus pandemic that seems to never be ending. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Hopefully it works. I know, yes, it's working. Okay, great. Can you all see the
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great. So just a little brief introduction into me. My name again is Jessica Simien Lofton. A lot of people know me by Jessica Simien. I recently got married, and I am a freelance communication consultant. So this is where the imposter syndrome comes in, because I have worked in public relations since 2009, but I have only worked formally for maybe a couple years. I was at Nissan North America and I worked in their public relations department there. It was my first real job in the world. And so since then, I have basically consulted and worked as a contractor for different organizations and brands I've also professionally blogged since 2012, so I'm very familiar with influencer marketing and working with social media influencers, developing campaigns, things like that. I've gotten to work with lots of brands, especially when I was pregnant with my first son, mommy blogging. I found out how lucrative it is. So I've done work in that area. I've worked with Red Square Productions, who I found out about Sophie through, and I've done creative directing, video producing. So I sometimes feel like, what am I even doing? Is it PR still? Um, so a lot of my perspective comes from just learning things by being in that space, being in that environment, learning things as they have changed. As we've all known, social media, everything is changing so quickly. So I learned a lot of things on the fly. So I want to just share from my perspective different ways that we can continue to keep our audiences engaged during this time. And I think that I wanted to throw this in here as I was preparing and rehearsing. We don't really talk about the emotional effect like it has by being in public relations, being in communications. The world really never stopped despite COVID-19. And that is especially true for us when we're having to create messaging and put out different content. We're still dealing with that emotional effect as well. Like, hey, I need a break too. So I just want to talk a little bit about that and how engagement can show up on your different platforms and how you can ensure that your message is being communicated effectively and appropriately during this time. So I'm not sure where everyone is in terms of the work that we all do. So I don't mean to regurgitate information, but I just want to talk a little bit about what engagement actually is. So it's all the different ways that a person can interact with your content, and it's going to look different depending on the platform you're using. It's going to look different depending on the content that you're producing, and none of us will have the same results, and that's perfectly fine. That's kind of the nature of it all. Some of the ways that you can measure engagement, I'm sure you all know: likes, comments, shares, page mentions. Now we're seeing on Instagram, getting people to actually save your post helps boost you in the algorithm. In terms of engagement, that's the most valuable type of engagement. But I personally like clicks. I love to see people click on links. So that is usually what how I draft my messaging to get people to actually take the action that I'm asking them to do. So this slide is a little jumbled, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to read through it all. And so these are just some strategies to keep your audience engaged. So number one, I know, and I deal with this, it can be a little intimidating to communicate with people in this climate, especially if you're in sales, especially if you're working with an organization that kind of needs people. It feeds off of conversation and dialogue, and it really doesn't have anything to do with what's going on in the world. But we still have to communicate. So let's not fear it. And also not necessarily making posts about the pandemic life in itself, but the pandemic being on top of like everything else. So you want to acknowledge it. You want to discuss the changes that it has brought on within your business. Just like Sophie was saying, it's been a year of virtual meetings. Now it's time to kind of figure out, are we still doing this? Are we going to try something different? So being very open and flexible with your audience about the changes you're experiencing. I know that many people are working with universities and schools are closing, they're opening again, then there's hybrid instruction. So I think one strategy to keep your audience engaged in this area would be to just host Q&As. You know, you can do surveys, you can do polls, but also getting in front of them, People are watching live broadcasts. We're all video producers from home now, so you don't have to have an elaborate setup to do these things. But hosting some type of Q&A session, ask me anything, post on Instagram stories or your Facebook stories, those type of things will get people to communicate with you. I found that when I can't get a response either in the comment section or if they're not clicking the link, asking questions has really helped, or giving them the opportunity to ask a question. So using the stickers on them and creating your graphics in such a way that it encourages responses. So the next thing would be to continuously monitor your levels and re-strategize if necessary, because again, social media is so complex that one thing can work today and it may not work tomorrow. So I encourage people to check in at least weekly on your insights. These tools are built into Facebook, they're built into Instagram. Software like Buffer and CoSchedule. I love Planoly for Instagram personally, is my favorite, to go and look in to see where people are commenting, to see what they liked, how many followers you gained or that you lost. Also, Sprout Social is helpful with that as well. But I use an example here on the slide of an organization that kind of does what Pram does. We get together and we network. So if we can't do that in a pandemic, a way to continue to keep that engagement from your audience or your membership or whatever you call them would be to create that community online. So Facebook groups are always popular, and now there's so much you can do with them. You can actually do learning modules in Facebook groups. You can monetize these groups. You can have moderators who, let's say on Monday, they're facilitating one activity, then you have another person who's doing this. They are really robust. And I encourage you, if you have any community that is physical or in person, to duplicate it online. And it doesn't have to be big, but people really engage in groups because of just the nature of the way Facebook and other social media platforms are now, with constant news. You know, you can't really, I know on Twitter, you can see what other people like, you can see what they're retweeting, and it may not be relevant for you. So a lot of people engage in groups, and it's a great way to test ideas, to again, keep the community aspect going. You can go live, you can have other members go live. It's a lot you can do with groups. So that's something that I'm enjoying experimenting with. And then another strategy is to actually engage with your audience. I love to tell stories. We know that storytelling is key when it comes to content. Sometimes the image itself or the video itself is not enough. And so we have to use this space where we're the captions or the messaging to engage back with them and give them, I guess you could say, conversation starters. So you can ask them, and this again, the pandemic, I don't know how people are perceiving it now. I feel like things have kind of gone back to normal in a way, with everyone going back out. So I don't know if you would still think this is relevant. But just using that example, if everyone's working from home, you may want to talk about different software you're using, or something that taps into the current reality but connects back to the business. So for example, with our candle company, we sell candles. People are home, so they want their home to smell good. So instead of saying, hey, go buy this candle, we may say, hey, what scent are you burning today? Did you know that fragrances are connected to our memories? What's a scent that brings back a memory? And so that may not get us a sale, but it has our audience talking to us, which means they're going to see our post in the feed later. Because, we're always combating like advertising and things like that, especially us with our small business. We don't have an advertising budget. So doing things like that helps our audience to see us. And also cross promoting with other businesses. So we did a collaboration with Visit Jackson, able to say, hey, guess what? You can buy our candles in the Welcome Center and then send us a photo, since we weren't part of the transaction. And so just figuring out ways to meet them where they are, but still get what you need, whether that the engagement, the sale, the sign up, to take the survey, whatever that action is. So another strategy is to produce more content than usual, using what you've learned firsthand from your audience. And so we did a poll about, hey, do you like floral or fruity fragrances? And so we found that most people like floral fragrances for their candles, which surprised me. And so now I knew that, okay, not only can we find more floral fragrances, we can also use this in our marketing. We can use the floral notes. We can share information about how these things are sourced. So giving them value and also showing where their responses have affected the business, meaning they feel valued, they feel heard, they feel listened to, and then they're going to engage more and continue engaging. So let's say an organization like Pram, who thrives or at one point thrived on in-person meetings. Now, we're not doing that. So what we could do is, if we have this Facebook community, now we can add digital downloads. So, okay, you didn't take the survey. Well, now I'm going to give you something that you can download, but guess what? You have to give me your email. So now I still get what I need. I'm building my mailing list with this digital download. Maybe it's a checklist, maybe it's a fact sheet, maybe it's an ebook, something really quick that you can build from content that you've already produced. You can gather your blog posts together, put them in a download, and send it out if you want to grow your list. But if you're wanting to, let's say you need sponsors, if you're wanting to bring in funding, that's a way to show that, hey, although we're not meeting in person, our community is still engaged. They're still signing up. They're still downloading these materials. And so your sponsorship will still be valuable to us, to them, and to you. You'll get a return because these people are actually engaged. And the last one is something that I struggle with is outsourcing when you need to. We can use all the tools that we have at our disposal, but if we're creating more content than usual, if we're targeting it more than we may have in the past, and especially if we're doing new things like virtual meetings, virtual conferences, virtual roundtables, whatever it is, we may need to outsource some things to people who can handle that. That way the quality is not compromised, and we can focus on the information, which is what people need. So it could be outsourcing your email marketing. You could outsource your live stream production. Just wherever you can put those dollars to continue to keep everything consistent and relevant for your audience. So after all of that, and people are liking, they're commenting, they're sharing, now we can use this to produce content in the future that continues to give them value. And so I shared this chart here, this diagram, this graphic from Sprout Social on just different types of content that consumers like to engage with. I think video is a little higher than this, but so we see images, video, all that is king. We know that. And again, if you don't have a professional production team, you can still produce high quality video through Zoom. If you want to do a live stream, there's StreamYard. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with that, but it's basically a live stream production studio in your browser. You don't even have to download anything. You can go to StreamYard. You can have up to 10 participants. You can create your own banners. So this is really good for for like conference type discussions, you can record these. You can actually see your chat and your stream from all your different channels. So one thing, I stream about twice a month, maybe 3 times a month using StreamYard, and I'm able to go.
Did we lose Jessica? Can anybody hear Jessica right now?
I can't.
I'm here.
She froze.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah,
either.
got nothing.
I'll see if I can get her back.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, y'all.
I've sent her a message to try to get her back on. I'm sure she just had a little internet connectivity issue. But while we're waiting for her, I actually wrote this down to ask after, and I put this in the Facebook chat. Well, I'm sorry, the chat about our Facebook group. So if you are a member, one of our membership benefits is a Facebook discussion group. And I think I've already seen a couple of requests come through to join that group. So that's specifically for members. And would love to have you in there. And we have members posting things that they find relevant and might be useful to others. So if you are not part of that group and you're on Facebook, we highly recommend you joining that.
Just joined. I was not aware of that. Thanks, Sophie.
Absolutely.
While we're waiting on Jessica, I was going to mention at the end of the meeting, Mara Hartman, our career development coordinator, couldn't be with us today, but she wanted to let y'all know that there are 2 APR events coming up. And there's more info on these events on the agenda that's in the chat. On April 8th, PRSA is holding a webinar on the value of earning your APR accreditation. This webinar is usually $200, but they're offering it for free for current PRAM Central members. And then on April 17th, the Southern Public Relations Federation, which we're a part of, will offer its own webinar on APR readiness. That's April 17th, and SBRF will be releasing more information on that soon. So if you haven't earned your APR, but you're thinking about it, there's a couple of good free resources coming up to get you started. Okay. Participants. Seeing her. Did you hear anything back, Sophie?
Yes, she said that she was trying to log back on, so we'll give her just a second.
Okay.
So that her Zoom crashed.
Well, while we're waiting on her to kind of piggyback off of her discussion, have any of y'all out there been producing content messaging over the past year related to COVID-19? And if so, do you have any, lessons learned or experiences with that? I'm putting y'all on the spot. Oh,
I
Liz has.
mean,
Go ahead, Liz.
yeah, I mean, just, like how everyone else has been doing. I mean, so I've been producing like, internal messaging for our employees. It's been a constant process, as y'all know, keeping them updated, on the, pretty consistent, significant changes that take place um, with the COVID situation. So that, and then of course just keeping like our partners and our clients updated. So yeah, I mean, it's been pretty smooth, honestly. I mean, it's I pretty much have just learned to, I've got my little procedure down where I just pretty much take, I do our employee updates first, of course, and then I kind of take verbiage from that and kind of, tweak it for partners and then clients. So it's been a pretty smooth process. Yeah.
Thanks, Liz.
I-
It looks, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so go ahead. It's fine.
Well, Charlene, hold that thought.
Sure.
I think Jessica might be back on.
There she is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. My computer literally cut off. I'm
No
so
problem.
sorry about that, y'all.
No
I was
problem.
about to cry.
There's always a glitch in one of these meetings.
I know,
Yeah.
this is crazy. But I'll try to pick off where I left off. I was basically saying that there are a lot of things you can do. And what you've learned from your audience over this period, this last year, especially within the last couple of months, as things have changed, you want to just create more of that. And they're not going to get tired of it. Our audiences are really good at telling us what they like. And they tell us through the engagement, through the likes, through the mentions, through the comments. And I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I try to control it. Like, no, don't like this. I want you to be into this content, not this one. But you just kind of got to go with what they're showing you, especially because they are the ones that count. They're the ones that we're trying to get the results from. So it's best to do what they are responding to. And so I was
Jessica,
almost done. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, just to jump in real quick. You're not sharing your screen anymore. So if you want to try pulling your presentation back up.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. My little mask people. So the main takeaway is that, we're all still learning how to approach this. Just, now this has never happened to me. So I'm like, okay, I need a backup for the backup. We just have to handle these situations with care. It is impacting our audiences as much as it's impacting us, and maybe even worse, depending on what field you're in, what type of work you do. And again, if we're feeling it, they're feeling it. So we have to use our human characteristics. I tell people all the time, I'm a freelancer, I'm a blogger, but I'm not a brand. I'm a human. So I have human traits. I'm humanly flawed. And I think that this whole pandemic, the age of coronavirus, COVID-19, this is a great time to remember that. That we can get bombarded with advertisements and things like that. So if we have to create these messages, and we do, because this is the work that we do, and our publics are relying on us, we have to do that with care and remember that people are going through things, and that content could push them away if it is not written correctly, if it's not appropriately. For example, I saw people complaining on Twitter that a retailer was telling people to use their stimulus check to save money on their clothes. Like, who okayed that, right? So all of those things are important, and people are going to remember it. And just not even with just the pandemic, with social justice, with the issues with race that are going on. This is just a really touchy time. So if we can remember that we are human, that people are human, they're going through human things, and use our resources, use what we learned, what we already know, what has worked, and outsourcing with people who can offer us more insight, I think we can win. And I think we can continue to communicate effectively and see the results that we need to see throughout this time. And so thank y'all so much. Again, I'm sorry for the computer problem. If you have any questions for me, I will try my best to answer them. But you can also, I can send this slide to you if you like a copy of it. I'm sorry, the presentation, if you like a copy of it. As I mentioned before, I am very well versed in influencer marketing. I do a lot of things. So if you like to just pick my brain, you can visit my website and set a time up to do that. But that's all I got.
Well, I think we have time for some questions. Anybody have any thoughts? I know Charlene was about to say something before we got Jessica back on. Charlene, what were you thinking?
Hey, I was just going to add to the, what I've seen just with COVID, working for the Board of Pharmacy, we've had, the public's been really confused about a lot of stuff that was going on. I don't know if you guys remember the hydroxychloroquine issue, but that made my life absolutely insane for quite a while. But, that's kind of where I am right now, though, is trying to figure out how to engage the public, because that's not exactly what our Facebook is for. Our Facebook is for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians and stuff. And I'm trying to figure out a good way, if any of you have any suggestions on how to bring in everyday people who aren't necessarily going to understand a lot of the information that I put out. How do you guys include everyone that feels that they need to be included? How do you do that?
You said your organization is primarily for pharmacies.
Mm-hmm. But
and I don't know. Go ahead.
But because of COVID and because of all of these medications that people were saying were the cure-all, people were, basically yelling at us saying, why aren't you making this available? Well, that's not up to us to do. But, how do you explain that to people without creating any kind of, contention?
Have you all ever had maybe like I don't know what you would call them, but like your dream team pharmacists that maybe they could host a discussion, or maybe take some of those questions that you've been receiving and they can say, hey, we're having a Q&A, submit your questions to us, and we're going to have this pharmacist and this one, and they'll address it. And maybe then you could use some of that information and have them say it.
That's a good idea.
And maybe that would help.
Okay, that's actually a great idea. It's getting pharmacists to participate and be the face of anything that's going to be an issue, but I think we can handle it.
Pharmacists, doctors, accountants,
But this is why we have jobs, right? Like, right. Sorry guys, they're doing some testing.
To build on what Jessica was saying, and this is not pandemic related at all, but at Entergy, when people's power goes out, we hear about it everywhere. And our social media team has built a lot of Ask the Expert type videos that we put on social that are just real short. Like, sometimes they're only 30 seconds, sometimes they're a minute, but we take the most common questions that we have asked, or that we are asked about. Why does it take so long? Or, why does my estimated restoration time change? Or those kinds of things that are, as Jessica was saying earlier, it humanizes it when you see a person from that company. And it's not just, you're standing behind the logo, but it's that actual pharmacist or doctor or accountant or whoever it is. And so for your Facebook page, that something along that Ask the Expert line might be worth exploring.
Layla, I think that's great.
I also wanted to.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to add one thing to something that Jessica said earlier. So if what you were going to comment on is along that other thread, keep going.
Mine's actually about partnerships. So go ahead.
All right, I was just going to say that when Jessica was talking earlier about measurement, one of the things that I think is really important to remember in these particular times, and I would definitely like to hear her perspective on it, is the amount of time that someone spends on a page. So even though you might not have, say, the number of people engaging with a piece of content that you would like, let's say a blog post, that you can see that somebody spends 3 minutes or 4 minutes or however long on the page, you know that the people that you are wanting to reach are being very engaged in that particular piece. And so that's something we shouldn't forget about, that just because the total numbers aren't skyrocketing doesn't mean you're not reaching the people you need to reach.
I think what I
Yeah,
found, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, that's what I try to tell people all the time, that it's going to look different, but if you actually look for it, it's there. You'll be able to find it.
And this goes back to Charlene, but also I had this question for Jessica. For us, I think back to your question and a campaign that we did this past fall for the flu season, because there was a lot of concern that there would be an overlap with COVID and flu and what that would do to the healthcare system. And so I work for IHL, so I work for the public university system. And so we partnered with the State Health Association and about 5 or 6 other associations with different areas to come up with a campaign to talk about getting a flu shot. And I think about your question about how do you address something that is directed your way, but how do you get others to help in that fight to dispel myths? And I think that's where partnerships can be really helpful, just like you're saying with getting in pharmacists and getting in others to help spread the message for you, because sometimes it's not you that maybe needs to deliver the message or would be taking it as seriously. And so we have to think about those people that people would actually take information from and actually believe what they're saying and take it in a way that maybe us looking like Big Brother may not have as much credibility. So I think partnerships are really important. And Jessica, I know you had some partnerships in the past year. I think that those have been important about how to work together with others. I've seen even with your candle business, working with certain, like Visit Jackson, for example, you've created a specific scent that's Jackson, specifically Jackson. And I wondered how partnerships were affected in this past year, and if you think that those are really helpful to help spread a message.
Partnerships really have been my lifeline, honestly. I think that I've partnered more in the last year than ever. Just because, like in one space with the candles, people are trying to add something new. Like we just want to give people something new. We want people to be excited. So I just would have never thought that I'd be selling candles at this point in time, but it has been really helpful for our business. And I would encourage anyone, if there's someone or another organization that will pair well, even if it doesn't seem like it at first, like, hey, we're a candle company, but Urban Foxes, they sell coffee. How does that work? It was a way to be to show more like, hey, there are local businesses in Jackson. We're in this together. We will bring you something new and exciting. This could be the highlight of your coffee experience. Did you know that we have these locally made candles? They are made right here in Belhaven by our neighbors, and this is the work that they're doing outside of making candles, and this is how it's improving our business. And it might work. Even with the work that I've done with Red Square, where we are working on different doula projects, just going to local businesses. For example, we're doing a project where we are talking about breastfeeding and how more people are breastfeeding. Well, Mama Nature's, which is a juice bar, does not seem like a top of mind partner, but we're able to partner because they're family friendly. and they support women breastfeeding. So you know that you can come here and do it. And so that has worked to spread the word. So I hope that answered your question, but I've done more partnerships, and I found that I've been able to make more money with the partnership. We've gotten more reach. We've reached people that otherwise would not have known us, that otherwise would not have been interested in the project. So I would encourage you all to do partnerships and really think outside the box. You just never know. It could work.
We have a question in the chat here from Liz. Jessica, she asked, what are your top 3 platform/tools that you currently use?
Okay, so my first and foremost, I mentioned it is Planoly, Planoly. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, but it's an Instagram and Pinterest scheduling tool. I love it because you can utilize Sprout Social to plan your Instagram. You can utilize Facebook now. They have publishing suite, but Planoly allows you to see your grid. So you can actually see your grid. You can see how it will look, and you can rearrange based on the look that you're going for. This was very important for us when we were working with a church, and how we scheduled the post and making sure, well, these are too many graphics all together. Let's put a family here. Or, it's not enough Black people. Let's put a Black person right there. So it just really helped us to see what we were putting out and making sure that it was the look and the feel that we wanted. So I love Planoly for that. Also, you know how you use hashtags with Instagram? You're able to save your hashtags in groups. So let's say if you're working with a pharmacy group, maybe you have your set of COVID posts, and then you have your regular posts. Well, you can group your hashtags for each topic. And so all you would do is hit paste, and they'll go in, and the app will actually put them as your first comment automatically. So you don't have to go back and do that. That's another great feature of Planoly, that everything it posts is kind of like I put it there and I go. Now it will not auto post carousels, and it does not auto post stories, but you're able to actually see it there. And so for me, I manage about 5 or 6 social media accounts. So I just like to create all my graphics, say on a Sunday, and I'll put them in in all their spaces for the whole week. And I can just go there and say, okay, yeah, this one's ready. This one's ready. I don't have to think about it. Another tool that I use, I'm sure you all know it. I know y'all know it. Canva is my favorite. I used to be anti-Canva because I thought I was so great at Photoshop. But Canva is a lifesaver. It does everything. I created my presentation here in Canva. You can share it with your team. And I found that it's really great for campaigns. So you say you have one person who's going to make the graphics. You have one person who's going to do the stories, one person who's going to do the email. You can create everything there. You can resize it to fit your platform. And see, I love Canva. It's the best. And let's see, if I had to pick a third, it would probably be StreamYard that I shared, the live streaming software that has really opened my world in terms of content, being able to engage with people, being able to have conversations, being able to get real-time responses and feedback. And I've learned a lot about my audience, and I've learned a lot about what people are interested in and what they're not. So those are my top 3.
So, I'm sorry, Jessica, what does StreamYard do again?
So StreamYard is a live stream production studio in your browser.
Cool. All right, any more questions? Thinking back to, what I was thinking of a few minutes ago was what I struggle with is finding the balance of creating, content for social media that is looks good and it looks original, but also maintaining kind of the same look and feel, to be part of my organization. And it's a struggle for me because I'm a one-person office and we're an agency that's pretty new to social media. And so what I find is that when I do something brand new, it gets more attention than when I try to do too much of a certain, similar look. So for me, that's, I also know that it's conventional wisdom that when you're doing a campaign or you want your content to be branded a certain way, that it is supposed to have a certain, uniform look and feel. So I wonder, am I just kind of lost in the woods, Jessica? Because I find novel stuff gets a lot of interest, but repeating stuff does not.
Maybe it's not the repeating, maybe it's how you're repeating. Maybe it's the way you repurpose it. So can you give me like an example so I can try to articulate my idea?
Well, for instance, I work at the Division of Medicaid, and last year I began, I think it was before the pandemic began, I started doing like this Medicaid 101 series. So I had like a look and little logo for Medicaid 101, and I would include kind of a different, fast fact in each post. And because that had the same look, the same Medicaid 101 look, I immediately see, the law of diminishing returns. So
okay, I see what you mean. So what is, so Medicaid 101, your initial post is out there, your logo, your brand. Could you maybe take your next fact and put it in a different place with the same look? Say if you did a 3-frame Instagram story, like, the first frame could be, hey, I don't know. So the first frame could be like, it's, I don't know what the language is. I don't want to mess it up, but something along the lines of, here's another fact about Medicaid that maybe you didn't know. And so then the next frame could be the fact, and you could maybe have it animated or put some stickers or something that's appropriate. And then the third frame could be a poll. Did you know this before today? Or, a question, and they can mark yes or no, or, you can put a thumbs up or a thumbs down or something like that, to where it's the same type, it's the same content, it's just presented in a different way that may look new, that looks new to them, but it's the same thing. So maybe you could do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I know that, and going back to our discussion about partnerships, I do try to keep up with colleagues at other agencies, because most of them have a little more, more resources than I do. And that's very helpful to kind of learn from them what's working from them with social media, because it's social media is difficult in and of itself, but when you're a government agency, it's even trickier.
Is it against the rules? I don't know the proper term, but would it be against the rules to have like an ambassador to share those facts, like someone who maybe has used Medicaid services and benefited from them, to say, hey, listen, this works for me. Did you know that Medicaid, blah, 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 and you could have like just I like response teams. That's what I call them, like my people that I can call on to do anything. And so maybe you could have a group of people that would be willing to be kind of like those spokespeople, and they could do that for you and present it in a different way.
Yeah, and that's an excellent idea, and it's similar to something we've discussed before. Getting our beneficiaries and providers to help tell those types of stories too. Like with everything else, though, it just takes a lot of legwork. So that's
Yeah.
that's the only.
But that doesn't have to be expensive. You know, it doesn't have to be an expensive thing. It doesn't have to be extravagant and elaborate. If you have a good camera, you know, and someone that can edit, it can be that simple.
That's
You know,
true.
I don't know what the other legwork could be, but to create it, you know, I
Well,
can help if you need some help.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, the shooting and the editing, you're right. That can be done pretty quickly and cheaply. The legwork I was referring to was finding those stories, finding those people.
Oh yeah.
Getting the nuts and bolts. All right. Any more questions?
Jessica, I heard you talking about the different tools that you use. What are your primary social media platforms that you're on?
Primary is Instagram for sure. That's what works for me. I don't see much of a return on Twitter at all, so I don't really invest a lot of time in Twitter. I see an okay return from Facebook, but it's Facebook. I prefer not to deal with it. But Instagram is by far the most the most, I guess, successful platform for any account that I've managed.
Okay, thanks.
And that probably also depends on your particular audience.
I'm working with a client who her Facebook, she can get close to 10,000 organic reach. That's not something I can do on Facebook, but her page does it. And so I've encouraged her, like, hey, don't fool with Instagram. You know, your people are here. So you can, you know, you can post on Instagram, but you need to spend your most time, your time and your money on the one that's showing you the return already.
All right. Any other thoughts or questions for Jessica? Well, if not, then Jessica, thank you for joining us today and giving us your presentation. It was excellent.
Thank y'all so much.
And we hope you consider joining Pram Central. We'd love to have you. And yeah, so our plan is to make this video available on YouTube and Facebook. And Jessica, did you say you would share your slides as well?
Yes. Cool. Sophie, I guess I can send them to you and you can send it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, then our next chapter meeting is Wednesday, April 28th. And the Pram State Virtual Conference is set for May 13th. So mark your calendars for those. And with that, I think we can adjourn this month's chapter meeting. Thank you all for joining in today, and hope you all have a great rest of the week.
Thank y'all. Awesome job.
Thanks,
Good
Liz.
week.